All right, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to welcome everyone here today. Today is a very exciting day where we get to do a presentation concerning the Macon violence prevention. I want to make sure that you know in advance not to be alarmed because you may see some commissioners that may not be here or some that may come in and out. We don't have a quorum necessary today because we're not taking any official action and voting. This is merely a presentation. Also, there's a lot of people that will be presenting today, so I want to tell you a little bit about how we'll proceed this afternoon. I think we have about 15 speakers that's going to present today, and they've been preparing their information. And then the sheriff will close us out. He'll be here in just a little while, and he'll close us out. I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions throughout that to write those questions down. We'll get to those at the end of the meeting today. We've very respectful of everyone's time. We give it your busy time today to be with us today, and appreciate you bringing this information. I do realize that some of you have just joined the team as far as getting money from the Community Foundation, and you certainly haven't even filed your first report yet, and some of you haven't got your money yet, so we understand that, and you wouldn't have any data really to report this time. But I'm going to step down from the mic in just a moment and just give some opening remarks concerning MVP, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy Grissom, who's our MVP coordinator, and he's going to walk us through this process today. I just want to make sure that we all respectful of each other's time. We have a schedule for all the presenters that are well aware of that, and they have some PowerPoints as well, and we'll be playing this at home as well. So we want to make sure that everybody is aware of those guidelines in the beginning. Again, I want to make sure everyone know that this not an official meeting where we're taking votes at, and don't worry about having a quorum today, even though we know that some commissioners had conflicts, but they will be coming in and out. I'm going to go ahead and step down to the front, and we're going to begin this process, and then we'll turn it over at the appropriate time. Time's about 2:35 now, and we expect to be completed and have any questions answered if we get to that point by our meeting time around 5:45, 6 o'clock. In the event that we don't answer the questions that someone may have, I'm going to ask you to direct those questions to Mr. Jeremy Grissom. If they're for the district attorney, they're going to forward that to our district attorney. If they're for the sheriff, he'll forward those to the sheriff. And I think some of you may even have questions for the school systems, and we'll forward those to the school systems. So this time I'm going to step down to the front and give a brief presentation, and then we'll begin with our speakers here today. Thank you. All right. Again, it's my pleasure to welcome each of you here today, and also to see leaders from all across our community, many of whom you will hear from today. And I'm speaking directly to the commissioners now, but I realize that we have an audience here today, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But I want you to know that violent crime does not occur in a vacuum. And the interventions proven to be effective are collaborative efforts that bring all stakeholders to the table, especially the community. This is why collaboration is a foundation principle for the MVP. Also want to let you know that we do have our Macon Violence Prevention Strategic Plans here today available for those that don't have it, and you can also find that information available online. At this time, I know some of the folks that are here today as part of our team, but I want to tell you that we have a collaborative team of over 31 leaders in Macon-Bibb County, and at this time I invite all the members of the MVP leadership team that are here with us today to stand and be recognized. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all that you've done as well. Dominique, can you stand up as well? We want to make sure that you understand that you're a valuable part of this process. And many times when we talk about this MVP, I want to let people know that this Macon Violence Prevention Plan is what it is. It's the people's plan. So a lot of the information you see here doesn't necessarily come from the government perspective. It comes from the community-led perspective as well as a sheriff-led perspectives. Doesn't mean that I necessarily agree or disagree with anything in there, but this is what we heard from our community. As many of you may know, back on June of 2021, we stood on a very hot day just across the street here at Rosa Parks Square. Must have been about 110 degrees that day. But what I want to tell you is that was just the announcement of one of the largest collaborative efforts that our community has ever seen. Did we start to work that day? In some respects, yes, we started before that day. But in June of last year, we formed the MVP program. It was from that point in time, we took about 14, 15 forums across from every part of our community. Thank you for all you commissioners that participated in that, and you hosted those in your area, and some hosted multiple forums. We also, at that time, collected many data and surveys. Over the next 90 days, we gathered all the input, and we incorporated it into a strategic plan that was done by the Carl Vinson Institute. And this plan was funded first in 2022, and we'll get to that. But I want to make sure people realize that this strategic plan is the people's plan. It did not get published to the community until December of 2021, just several months ago. And then after that, one of the large efforts was the Community Foundation, and we funded $825,000 in 25 grants, and you'll hear from Mr. Grissom in a little bit, that got funded in just February, this March. So we're very short into this plan. Today, we're here to provide you an update, a snapshot of all the work that we have done. As you will learn from those who speak today, together we've made an unprecedented investment, both in deterring violent crime and short-term in preventing violent crime in the future. We do not have to choose between having a safer future and a safer presence. We can and we are both investing in young people and investing in our law enforcement. By investing in both evidence-based law enforcement strategies and community-led strategies, we have created a model program which is now being replicated by many of the communities that surround us. Our administration has made a historic investment in long-term prevention of violent crime in our community. This has been our commitment from day one. Even before the MVP launch, our efforts to address the underlying causes of violent crime, we invested in our people at the Brookdale Resource Center, and you're going to hear from someone today in the Brookdale Center. Everyone knows about that success, but I think it's important to remind you and give you an update of the untragic situation that happened in December of 2020 before many of us took office. This program is now managed in conjunction with the United Way of Central Georgia, expanding services and continues to provide essential services to individuals and families who experience homelessness. You will hear from the leadership today. Today, we have, as a government, put at least $4 million in this program, and we have received matching funds to the United Way that received the grant of almost $4 million. The root causes of violent crime that runs deep. True long-term preventions require that politicians have the courage to invest in solutions that may not bring fruit immediately. Let me say that again because I think people may not understand. As politicians, and a lot of us try to distance ourselves from being politicians, but we get elected. As a matter of fact, we started voting this week. But as politicians, you don't see very many times that they invest in things that are going to bear fruit after they leave. Because we're not credit-centered, we're people-centered. I commend this commission and all those elected officials and community leaders for investing in evidence-based strategies that will make our community a better, safer place to live for generations to come. Today, you will hear about progress designed to engage our youth, to help them gain self-esteem, to heal from trauma, and to learn that a gun is never the solution to a problem. We have allocated $2.5 million to the Community Foundation of Central Georgia to fund community-based programs. You should have received a handout at your seat from Ms. Catherine Dennis, who could not be here today, but she wanted to make sure that you had a detailed explanation of the process and the people who received these grants. Jeremy Grissom will give you more information about that. We've invested over $1 million in Violence Interrupter program designed to intervene in the community level to reduce the risk of retaliation, escalation in the wake of violent crime. Today, you will hear more about that program from Pastor Dominique Johnson and the popular Cure Violence model that we know across this nation has been successful, even in our home state. And we invested $700,000 in our Macon mental health program that makes free mental health care accessible in our neighborhoods. The most current research compiled by the United States Agency for International Development cites cognitive behavior therapy as one of the most effective interventions in preventing recidivism. We have Andrea Cook here today to provide an update on the cutting-edge program for Macon Mental Health Matters. We've also increased our investment in code enforcement, launched our blight fight case. which has to date removed over 300 blighted structures in the last year and a half. We are holding business accountable, insisting that they follow the law, and closing down vice marts that are magnets for crime in our neighborhoods. Today, I'm happy to say that you will hear from our county attorney, our senior county attorney, Michael McNeil, about the impact and the data from these programs. You also hear from Sheriff Davis himself and the District Attorney Anita Howard and her RISE program, who will share with us the impact of our investment in program led by their offices, including improved technology, increased pay and retention incentives for our law enforcement, and the new innovative program announced just yesterday, which will put more law enforcement officers on the streets when they are needed most. As you may recall, the MVP program bringing stakeholders including community leaders, agency heads, elected officials, nonprofits, and neighborhood organizations. During the first 90 days, we reviewed relevant research on what methods are proven, most effective, and then we solicited feedback from the community in those 14 public hearings and attendees over 1,100, collecting 700 online surveys. With all the information, with the MVP leadership team designed a strategic plan with a total of 18 focus areas and related strategies. Each of those areas are listed in that strategic plan that I mentioned to you earlier, and each of those will be considered on every occasion. Keep in mind, this is a fluid document. Criminals don't determine their action based on one schedule. They adapt, they change. We must do the same thing. That's why this document will change as our needs may change. The MVP strategic plan is based on 4 key principles: facilitating collaboration among leaders. I hope you can tell by the number of people that we have here today that are collaborating with us, that are leaders in our community, has fulfilled that obligation already. Engaging in the community, investing in evidence-based solutions, and evaluating the effectiveness. The evaluating the effectiveness part will come in time. It will not come in the first few months of an operation. This is a long-term solution based on data that we must collect after a year at a minimal of data that we have. As we have always said, this plan is a living, breathing document, and we will be adjusted as we learn more as its effectiveness. As we move forward, we're committed to the program evaluation, and we will use this evaluation as a basis for further decisions. Simply put, we will continue to fund what works. The MVP team identifies systemic issues that contribute to violent crime, issues that were exacerbated by the pandemic. Some of these include poverty, food insecurity, insufficient access to economic opportunity and quality jobs, substance abuse, homelessness, and recidivism. For communities across the nation, including ours, the pandemic caused increased pressures in every single one of these areas. It is not surprising that many communities, including ours, also experience an increase in violent crime. Today, you will hear good news on the job creation and opportunities from our partners at the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority. I know some people may ask, why do we have these folks coming to talk about this when we're talking about crime? Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, you cannot fight crime. You cannot lift a community out of poverty. You cannot get to the root causes without first having economic development and good jobs for these folks to enter into. And that's why we'll bring that information out today. The best available research tells us that focused deterrence, placing both personnel and resources in areas that are most impacted by violent crimes, is the best strategy for short-term intervention, the best way to prevent the next shooting. As you heard yesterday, the sheriff and I and the fire department are also working together to put more law enforcement where they are needed and needed the most. Too often, too many people in our community think they can solve a problem just by picking up a gun. The message to these individuals is simple: stop shooting and we'll help you. Keep shooting and we'll put you in prison. From day one, I have felt my obligation, my commitment to invest in law enforcement by raising salaries, implementing the pay scale, and taking the lid off hiring so the sheriff can hire as many qualified deputies as he can. So when you hear out on the streets that we need more deputies, we agree. When you say we are not properly funding our sheriff deputies, we disagree. We will hire every qualified deputy that submits an application to Macon-Bibb County, and the sheriff has my commitment, and I'm sure has all the commitment of the 9 commissioners that I have the pleasure to serve with. Solving this problem will continue to require commitment from all of our partners, and that's why I'm glad that they are standing with us today. No one can do this alone. and we must all work together. So how much have we contributed to public safety as a mayor and commission? Over 40 to 50% of our budget, if you count the courts, in our most recent budget, and over $85.5 million. We're all just a piece of the puzzle. Together, we can and we will create a safer, stronger community for generations to come. I thank you for your time today. I look forward to having these presentations be submitted to you today. Again, I would remind you that if there are questions, most of those will probably be for the sheriff, and sheriff will be the last person presenting. But if your questions do not get asked today because of time, I ask you to submit those to Jeremy Grissom or the DA or the sheriff or the school superintendent to make sure that those specific questions get answered by the person who has the information. So thank you for allowing me an opportunity. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to watch the rest of this presentation today. We do have a meeting today at 6 o'clock. And we're going to try to stay on time as much as possible. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Grissom, just one second.
Okay.
I wanted to get to my microphone up here. If the public has any questions, feel free to email those questions to us as well. We'll make sure they get to the sheriff. The district attorney is going to give you her contact information at the end of her presentation. You'll have all of her information on where to contact her to send any information that she may do, and the sheriff will do the same thing. So we'll make sure everyone has the opportunity to get their questions in. I wish I had all the answers. I do not have all the answers, but we will make sure they get to the person who has the answers to those questions and get that done. So thank you, Mr. Tillman. And Mr. Grissom, we're with you, sir.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Jeremy Grissom. I'm the Macon Violence Prevention Coordinator. And I want to take the time out to express my gratitude to be allowed to be a part of something so historic. I don't think there's been a time where there are 31 organizations that have been community-led that are working directly in their communities, doing what they feel would best affect crime in their communities. So not only have I had the opportunity to partner with the leadership teams and have collaborative discussions, I've actually been able to go to some of these events, sit with some of these organizations and see the people that they've actually affected. And you know, data is important, but there are some stories that's not told by data. So we understand that data is important, but data doesn't tell us that, you know, when you go to late night basketball from the hours that, you know, from hours of 7 to 12 where crime is most prevalent, that there are not only individuals there playing basketball, but they have family members there, their kids are there, and they're in a safe environment where they can be themselves, and they find out more about their community besides the negative things that are told or that happens in the community. They see that this is a safe place to be. They see that this is a safe place to grow. They see that this is a safe space to expand, and that's good to see because the youth in our community need to see that there are positive things to do in this community. And to have the opportunity to watch them work and be a part of that has been my pleasure. The Community Empowerment Center has completed a total of 13 courses, and they've served 392 youth between the ages of 16 to 21. They've had 409 registrants of the duration of the program. They've served a total of 483 young adults and young people between the ages of 5 and 21 years old. So they've served a whole lot of people in a short amount of time and given them the opportunity to do something that they might normally not have the opportunity to do. Motivating Youth has graduated 46 participants, with 42 of them being employed at this moment, which has affected over 115 children and spouses in Macon-Bibb. The STAR Coalition, who serves to complete conflict resolution, has completed 3 roundtable discussions, 5 basketball camps, 6 conflict resolution workshops, 1 back-to-school event in which they've served over 200 youth. And Royal Science has engaged youth from the hours of 7 to 10 on Fridays and Saturdays through STEM events in which they use sports to gain attention of the kids. And it's very powerful to know that they can use STEM and sports to not only teach them a skill, but teach them conflict resolution. So I'd also like to give you an update on the Community Foundation. Ms. Dennis would have liked to be here, but she's not able to be here. But she thanks the mayor and the commission for the investment on the potential to stop violent crime and prevent it in our community. 200 people participated in MVP grant application training. 75% of the participants were first-time grant participants. 58 applications were submitted in direct alignment with at least one of the 6 community-led strategies of the MVP strategic plan. 20 of the 58 applicants had never applied, and 38 of the participants, which are 66%, were people of color. The board of directors approved 25 grants totaling $825,000 to implement programs aligned around one goal over time, which is reducing and preventing violent crime in our community. Of the 25 grants that were awarded, 9 were first-time grant recipients, and 18 of the projects were led by people of color as well. The Community Foundation is working with others to develop training for grantees, Macon Violence Interrupters, and other organizations who want to apply for the next round. And I think it's important to know not only are we empowering grassroots organizations, but they're learning what it is to report the grants and receive that amount of money. So not only are we giving them an opportunity to do something they've never done, we're building these organizations to continue to work in this community. And I'd like to bring up next Pastor Dominique Johnson from Cure Violence to give you a little bit of their data. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dominique Johnson, pastor of Kingdom Life, but also the project director of Cure Violence Macon, what we call Project Hero. Let me just stay right here. Project Hero, Hero stands for to heal, empower, restore, optimize, and we are placed in the Pleasant Hill area. We touched down in that area on April 1st. In the beginning of April, we were awarded $811,000. Most of that goes to the salary to our VIs and outreach workers. Before I get deep into the data, I want to thank everybody who has their hand to the plow, and then congratulate you and just tell you big ups and keep up the good work. Thank you to the mayor and commission and to my team. So we get started. First slide. Do I do it like that? Violence, go on to the data for me if you don't mind. All right, so right here, I'm not just gonna read, I'm gonna read the high level to you, but then also explain it. All right, so before the program and the incidents, you had the aggravated and simple assaults and homicides that were in this Pleasant Hill area, and it shows the Pleasant Hill also with the county. So as you see, it spikes. It goes up and down. It goes. Next slide for me. This is what happens after we touch ground. So you see the orange would be the violence and the blue would be us in the time spent. So as you see the time spent, it actually went down and leveled out. So where it once was spike, it'll go down and spike. We actually help reduce crime in our short time and then leveled it out. So I want you to get that. What our violence interrupters do, our hours are from 2 to 10. Hours are from 2 to 10, but on Tuesday through Saturday. And on Friday and Saturday sometimes we work 4 to 12. So we're in those prime times and hours to where violence happens. Now, that doesn't mean we only do work on Tuesday. The work we've done stuff on Sunday when we hit stuff. We come out on a Monday, all right? The next slide you see, I ain't bring my glasses, this is our daily log host. What you see over in the corner is the hours that are logged, and you may see something say pub ed. The model has us to present public education about crime, violence, and those things. And so once we get that pub ed going, we now able to inform people and let them know why we're in their community and what they're doing. Next. So if you see here, staff referrals. I think one of the key things about the Cure Violence model is that we not only interrupt, once someone gets on our caseload, we have wraparound services. So our VIs, when they interrupt some a crime or deal with somebody, they then switch or hand off that individual to what we call an outreach worker. Outreach worker then get them on their case, and then we're able to provide services, wraparound services to different individuals. So that's what you see when you see the referrals in and out. When you get to the interruptions, the orange piece is the number of interruptions and things that we've been able to stop and continue on. Next for me. We may be it. That it for me. Now let me say this. What we able to do in this community is we definitely follow the motto that program necessarily doesn't stop this. It's relationships. Our target area, our target age is from between 16 to 25, give or take a year. In the Pleasant Hill area, there's no one on our caseload over 18. I'm gonna let that sink in because we're dealing with violent crime. We're dealing with gun violence. So there's nobody over 18 on our crew, on our caseload. What you have to have too are those people who are credible witnesses, or credible in the neighborhood. So for the Pleasant Hill area, we have Ariana Smith, who was not able to abuse us today. He's on I think the Knight Foundation got him somewhere learning, right? And so he was able to go in. We already built the connections. We talked to the neighborhood association, and we continue to move on in that. Here's why that's important. Two things, and I don't know if y'all have questions. What my time is, I'm gonna make sure I honor it. In dealing with this violence, and dealing with what's going on, you're dealing with poverty, you're dealing with changing cultural norms. Two things. We had a young man who was pretty popular in the neighborhood, Mayor Commissioner Paul. He probably would never have done this, but watching us, he actually mediated a conflict between two individuals that would have turned violent. So by us being there, he mimicked us and did it. Now, without the training, but he was able to at least see what we did or what we do and mimic it. Another area is, and this is just real talk, you have where we have credible people in our neighborhoods, and one young man mentioned, and this is why I mentioned Arion, he said, I'm gonna be honest with you, if it wasn't for Arion and you all doing this work in the community, I probably would have killed those little jokers. That's an exact quote that we got from one of our cure violence workers. Here's the issue. The issue is when we touch down, we're right on the front lines. We don't claim to have it all. We don't claim to be Superman, but we have made a bond with these young men. So much so that Sharon McKay was able to bring these young men on and help build a fence that's around. We have a cure violence house. Y'all all invited. Let us know. We'll put some hot dogs and burgers on the grill. Y'all come on over. But so much so they built that you should see the smile on these young men's faces when they do that. The other thing is while we are doing this type of work, we talk to them on a real level. We were able also to get them back in school, get some of the young teenagers back in school. Before COVID, when COVID started, we have had at least 3 or 4, am I right? 3 or 4 men, young guys, teenagers, who hadn't been to school in 2 years. We were able to mediate, get them back in school, at least at SOAR for a minute, and they're still there. So that's the type of work we're doing on a day-to-day basis. We're constantly, I shouldn't say constantly like that, but it's just the truth of the matter, we are constantly taking guns. Constantly. I mean, we have enough relationship where we're not in the car riding by, we take the guns from them. And we're talking about teenagers who are walking literally down the street, middle of the day. I'm not saying no one's not doing what they're supposed to do, middle of the day with Glocks with extended clips. So, do we take questions, man? What y'all want to do? I'm good. Okay, I'll wrap it up. So, 3 minutes? Okay, appreciate it, man. Hit me on the leg or something. So I just want to say, because you know preachers get long with it. I want to come back. But I want to say this. I know, I say this publicly. Sometimes me and you have a little whatever. But I do want to salute you and the commissioners on at least pouring into and investing. I want to salute the other 30 people to keep up the good work. And we here to help. And we appreciate you. And hopefully, when you see the data or whatever, we get funded again. And some more sites. All right.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Pastor Johnson, and your team for the hard work that y'all do. Next, we want to hear from the district attorney and her office on the RISE initiative and the wonderful things they're doing there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I do agree, Pastor Johnson. This is hard for me to talk with this many people behind me. I almost want to stand over there, but so I'm here to talk about the RISE initiative, Restoring Inspiration by Success in Education. We actually started this initiative when I first got into office, trying to plan and have sessions about what we wanted this initiative to look like, how could we best serve the community, and we had our launch in December of 2021. And a lot of people say, well, DA Howard, why are you doing the RISE initiative? You're a prosecutor. I am a career prosecutor, been one for 17 and a half years. Really, that's the only job I've ever had, was being a prosecutor. But we know that we cannot prosecute our way to safer communities. We are prosecuting those that are committing the most violent and heinous offenses in our community. That is where we are focusing our trial time. Right now, as we speak, we have 2 trials going on. One is a murder trial, one is a sodomy trial. But as I said, we cannot prosecute our way to safer communities. We must focus on prevention, and that is what the RISE initiative is all about. I think we have some slides. Perfect. So since we began this initiative, we have engaged with over 84 families. We have actually offered services to 55 families. As you see, we've had 96 referrals. You may say, well, how do you get the referrals in? The referrals can either be through the court, or they can be actually community referrals. It is my goal that we reach a point where 100% of our referrals come from the community. That's when we know we're truly doing all that we can do for prevention. And so some of the things that we do, and you'll see later, is some of our outreach that we do. And we are intentionally engaged to make sure the community knows that we have this initiative. So what we do is we try to identify youth who have experienced adverse childhood experiences. Those can include poverty, those can include loss of a parent via death or incarceration, or just experiencing violence in their home. And once we identify those youth, we offer them assessments. And based on their assessments, they have the opportunity to have counseling, mentorship, and other services that we're able to offer not only the child, but also the family. And what's so important is that if we address these adverse childhood experiences, we know that we can mitigate the trauma to these youth. A lot of these youth, without these services and without the mitigation of the trauma, they will become a part of our criminal justice system, oftentimes as an offender, a victim, or oftentimes, as we see it, both. And so that is what we are truly trying to prevent. So out of the 96 referrals that have come into our office, we are currently working with 22 of those referrals that are active. We have had 20 of those referrals of folks who actually started the initiative, but they did not complete it, right? I believe that talent is spread abroad. It is our job as public servants and community leaders to provide the opportunity. We know that some people are going to take it and do well, and that others, unfortunately, won't. And so we've had 20 individuals who started the RISE initiative, but they did not complete it. But more importantly, we've had 20 youth who've actually completed the entire initiative. And we will have a graduation for them on December the 22nd. And so, as you can see on one of those slides, we had different outreach events that we have engaged in. I want to thank the mayor and this commission for supporting my office, supporting this initiative. That is truly the work to make our communities safer and to provide opportunities of success for our youth. And I'm going to leave you with a short testimonial, if I can get it played. Then I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Okay. I mean, she just went from being completely out of control and very rebellious, and she had a problem with authority, and at this point, she's had a complete change and really has just become better for it. I mean, she has a whole new attitude at this point.
Yes, ma'am. And what would you say for parents that, are struggling with other kids as well, with similar behaviors? What would you say to them to try to change this type of issue?
Well, I mean, the program that the DA's office has at this point, I think it's a great program. It's done a lot. I mean, I was just almost lost. I was about ready to throw my hands up and throw in the towel, but it's been such a difference that our whole family has just noticed a difference with her. Well, it was a nightmare, I'm telling you, and I just hope, that she will continue.
Yes,
and I have even said that I don't know what the stipulations are with the program, but once, I guess she reaches the benefits limit of the program, I mean, if I have to, if it's even an option for her to continue going to see her counselor.
And so I want to say, oftentimes people ask me, they'll say, this is a wonderful initiative, but when are we going to see the numbers change? And I always tell folks, just like our mayor said, we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get out of this overnight. But because you, as the commission, have funded and supported this initiative, you saved that life. Who is that? She's a 15-year-old girl. The referral was from a grandmother. She was with her grandmother because her mother is an addict and her father is in prison. I cannot tell you what your support has done to change her life, the trajectory of her life, and her family's life. So I thank you from my office, but on the behalf of her and her family, I say thank you.
Thank you, D.A. Howard.
Thank you.
You can clap if you want to, by the way.
Thank you for the work that you all are doing. We'll next hear from the Brookdale Warming Center.
Good afternoon. My name is Allison Bender, and I am the Executive Director of the Brookdale Resource Center. As one of the mayor's first initiatives, Brookdale started as the Warming Center, and for those experiencing homelessness during the winter months in 2021. It was meant to be a short-term solution, but it didn't take long for us and the community as a whole to see the great need for a shelter like Brookdale. We provide more than a temporary place to stay. We are finding solutions for individuals and families to obtain stable housing. So that's when Brookdale became permanent. And with a small name change, Brookdale is now the Resource Center. We are a 90-day transitional shelter providing life-altering resources to individuals and families in Macon-Bibb. And I joke and say that we're always going to be known as the Warming Center, kind of like the shops at River Crossing will forever be known as the new mall. So when we first opened, Brookdale's residents looked completely different. We primarily helped individuals, some of those chronically homeless and others not. In the beginning, we saw very few families. However, today we see more and more families coming through our doors. Not only moms with their kids, but sometimes fathers and even grandmothers that are raising their children and their grandchildren. Most of the time, nearly half of our residents are children, and so Brookdale became a stop on the Bibb County School District's bus route. We provide buses for elementary children, middle school children, as well as the high school kids. Regardless of that demographic, though, and who we see, each individual and family has a different story of how they came to Brookdale. Though the majority of the residents at Brookdale are experiencing homelessness for the very first time. When establishing a program for Brookdale, we knew that we couldn't be a one-size-fits-all. So we created a program that was a progressive engagement program, which is a person-centered approach to ending someone's homelessness. It's based on tailoring assistance to each individual or the family's needs and assessing what works best for them, focusing on their specific strengths and their specific situation. We can't do the same thing for every person that walks through our doors. So we have to look at that individual and see what works best for them. So they work with workers, who assist in tailoring that 90-day program for them. Some residents need the full 90 days while others don't. Some need a little longer, but ultimately our mission is to connect those who are housing vulnerable with a permanent housing solution before they leave Brookdale. During a resident stay, we'd like to provide, obviously, the basic needs of shelter and food. But we understand that providing a sense of community can have a lasting impact for an individual and for the greater good of Macon-Bibb. Ensuring things like what we take for granted, like celebrating birthdays or providing an enrichment activity for children, has become a priority at Brookdale. One evening, we had a group come out that did a book reading and then gave a book to each child that participated that evening. The next morning, when I came into work, one of the little girls, before she got on the school bus, ran up to me and said, Miss Alice, my name's Allison, but everybody calls me Alice. So Miss Alice, are those ladies coming back tomorrow to give us another book? And I said, well, they're probably not coming back tomorrow, but maybe they'll come back soon. And she was so impacted by receiving that book and felt included and felt like that she was a part of a home instead of just being a part of a shelter. We also celebrate things like holidays, ensuring that no one misses out because they're in a shelter. We decorate and have parties. After our first Easter at Brookdale, we had a resident come up to one of the staff members, and she was an elderly woman, and she explained that she had never received an Easter basket, even as a child. So having that experience was life-changing for her. We recently had a baby shower. We had multiple moms-to-be at Brookdale all at the same time. So what did we do? We got together, figured out how we could get the resources that they need, everything from strollers to car seats. You got to have a car seat when you leave the hospital. So we had a party for them, and we tried to have some parental education in there as well, while making it fun for that individual. So Brookdale is not just a shelter, it's a home for these individuals that are staying there. And as you can see, we do, at Brookdale, we correlate and have a direct impact on the MVP program. By providing a little bit of normalcy, utilizing our progressive engagement approach, Brookdale can change the trajectory of the traumatized child who's below reading level and behind in their schoolwork because they're just trying to get through the day, but comes to understand that living in a shelter isn't their fault because we provided some mental health sessions that catered to their needs. Brookdale can change the trajectory of a teen aging out of foster care, feeling lost and unwanted by assisting them in their job search, and can possibly lead them to a career and giving them a sense of accomplishment. Brookdale can change the trajectory of a repeat offender that successfully re-enters into society without offending again because we provided the resources for them to have their ID reinstated, leading them to have a greater sense of freedom. Brookdale can change the trajectory of a mother with 2 small children that's experiencing homelessness for the very first time, helping her navigate back into stable housing, filling her with pride knowing she can provide for her children. Brookdale can change the trajectory of the individual with a history of substance abuse by providing recovery sessions, not only providing them with the wisdom to change, but the encouragement to do so as well. All of these are just a few examples of the impact Brookdale has in disrupting the cycle of insecurity that can lead desperate people to commit desperate acts. We are just getting started and our impact is growing. Brookdale's true bottom line can't be found on a tally sheet, but is found in the number of lives changed, and over time, a community can be transformed. Lastly, I would like to read a few testimonials from people that have been at Brookdale and what Brookdale meant to them. This is from an individual with substance abuse. When I came here, I was angry and rude to staff. I'm so sorry for the way I acted, but I am leaving here a changed woman. I love y'all and couldn't have done this without Brookdale. I am so grateful to all of the staff. This one's from a father of 4. To me, Brookdale means more than a shelter from the cold. In my experience at Brookdale, I can think of a few words: fidelity, encouragement, convergence. When my 4 kids and I arrived at Brookdale, I was at a point in my life that I just wanted to give up. But Brookdale is a place like no other. The staff welcomed us genuinely. I felt welcome, but I still felt that I had hit rock bottom with my kids. I felt like I had let them down. I was in a world of deep depression, but there are a lot of wonderful people on the Brookdale staff, and after having conversations with them, I felt an immediate trust. This is from a previously incarcerated individual. I came here broken. I was scared, mentally, spiritually, emotionally broken. I had no hope. I was determined to better my situation, so I came here not knowing what to expect. I was met with opposition, but eventually everything turned out great. Not only have I grown spiritually and emotionally, but I have also found peace. Here I gained strength, hope, and faith. I've made a few friends along the way, and that was rare where I was before. So I want to say, what does Brookdale mean to me? Everything. It gave me my life back. And I have one more. An individual with mental health challenges said that Brookdale took me in when my family kicked me out. I felt welcomed by the staff, and I felt that they actually cared when I felt that no one else did. Brookdale has helped me achieve a lot of things I wanted to. I have a therapist. I have means to get food, and they help transport me places that I need to be. I feel grateful and blessed to have Brookdale and the staff here. Brookdale is my safety net, and I'm thankful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bender.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Making Mental Health Matters about the work they've been doing with MVP.
Whew. Okay, I'm gonna take my shoes off now. Okay. So, it's good to see y'all again. We're gonna be on that first slide for a few minutes, y'all. So I'm Andrea Cook. I'm the project director for the Macon Mental Health Matters initiative. And just to give you all a little history, in March of 2021, you all awarded the Southern Center for Choice Theory funds to build and implement the Macon Mental Health Matters initiative. This groundbreaking initiative provided the most vulnerable, marginalized citizens of Macon-Bibb County an opportunity to have no-cost, high-quality mental health services in areas close to where they live, work, worship, and grow. MMHM received $700,000 in funding and supports many non-traditional avenues to obtaining mental health services, some of which include pop-up jams, drum circles, yoga, canning and counseling, knitting and counseling, solving circles, parenting on purpose. And through our partnership with Macon Headspace, there are now 13 bus stop ads and benches reminding people to breathe and that we have a mental health pop-up every second Saturday of every month. And just a quick reminder, we expanded where those are, so maybe they weren't in your neighborhood before and now they are. So please join us. I'll remind you. This program is the model for the rollout of barrier-free mental health services as stated by Senator Ossoff just a few short months ago. Our community imagined creating an environment where every person who needs mental health services could have the best care possible. We began the creation of these spaces where there were no financial restraints, and we worked to ensure that everyone who entered felt they were worthy of the care that they will receive. These mental health services were positioned within familiar settings like recreation centers and provided at no cost to the individual with a focus on service. That is what we choose to call Taranga. Barriers to care and the stigma associated with visiting a mental health clinic were eliminated because people could access quality care in their neighborhoods or close to where they live. Adhering to the World Health Organization statement that there is no health without mental health, and that discrimination, poverty, and rapid changes in the environment can lead to mental health concerns, we advocated for our community to address the social determinants of health impacting the targeted neighborhoods. Allowing for the pressures associated with surviving the current pandemic, we provided support groups, parenting classes, pop-up activities with the communities that are the most vulnerable and the targets of MMHM funding. I would like to remind the community that we were granted funding for 14 months and we are still providing services 19 months later. This project has been sustained because of local funds like the Central Georgia Empowerment Fund and national foundations, as well as everyday citizens, have provided bridge funding to keep this resource viable. The social determinants of health / mental health suggest that violence and mental health of an individual are I haven't gotten there, I'm still on that first slide. Are intricately connected. Membership in the Macon Violence Prevention Project afforded us the space to include our voices on the issues of the circular nature of gun violence and mental health. A plethora of research exists that suggests that gun violence is a multi-factored problem requiring a multi-factored response which includes well-planned mental health interventions, policies, and programs, and attention to individuals who are perpetrators of violence. If one's mental health needs are met, there is a greater risk for all kinds of, if one's mental health needs are unmet, there is a greater risk for all kinds of negative outcomes. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, there are roughly 160,000 people who live in Macon, Georgia. Approximately 30% of our citizens live below the poverty line. In these difficult times that all of us are working to survive, we need as many opportunities as possible for every citizen in need to access mental health services. What we offer is one more opportunity for those in need to have access to much needed services. Additionally, we provided 600 hours of clinical supervision, consultation, and professional development in our community at no cost. We stood up a Choosing Peace youth program in collaboration with the Macon-Bibb Parks and Rec Centers, offering at least 200 youth information training on resolving conflict without using violence, and this partnership has been one of our strongest gifts. Okay, so now I'm ready for the slides. Okay, so people we served, more than 4,400 calls have come into our office for services, and that's calls, that's not stops in the grocery store, that's not stops or Facebook messages. That is 4,400 calls over the last 19 months trying to access services. We have served 804 individuals and families. As a reminder, we were asked to target 600. 68 people have maintained counseling for more than a year. The reason why that is incredibly significant is because typically people are not allowed or afforded the ability to be able to be in care that long. For insurance companies, it's usually 6 to 8 sessions, and then you have to get approval to have additional counseling sessions. And so it's pretty significant that people have been able to access mental health services for that long. We provided more than 3,300 hours of counseling and psychoeducation. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, where's the outreach one? Can you put that one up? Okay, so we've held 430 support group classes over the course of this time. We've attended or held 51 health fairs and community events. We've had 18 mental health pop-up events. Please come. If you need more information, I will share it with you. We've given out over 8,000 in-kind donations, such as diapers, food, laundry, and basic needs. And that may not seem like something that is necessarily connected to your mental health, but our clients have consistently told us that these are things that they would rather purchase than access mental health services. So diapers are something that we've used to help people so that they can come and get their services. We provided food. We've paid for people to have their laundry done. And then next slide, the last slide, please. So some of the results that are important to this work is that through the advocacy, not just of our agency, but as our whole collaborative, there has now been more funding allocated to mental health services in our city than has ever happened before. And when we started this work, Georgia was 51st in access to mental health services. And we believe that because of our concerted effort here, that we are now 48th. So thank you very much. Oh no, I'm sorry. I have one last thing. Okay, so a few weeks ago, there was some conversation about the Swift, Certain, and Fair project and what we do and how that work impacts what family violence. And so I wanted to just give you, since I have the opportunity, I wanted to give you a little update on that. We work with the solicitor's office and local probation to provide for perpetrators of violence. And this project does not require that we hire additional staff to take care of those people. It is a specialty service, and it is one of the projects that we engage in that helps us to give back to the community. The initial Swift, Certain, and Fair project was a federal grant that provided around $700,000 to several organizations over the course of several years. The grant itself pays a certain amount for an individual to receive services, and that certain amount for this contract year for our agency is $15 for a 90-minute session with a certified family violence intervention provider. And then additionally, if that person is approved to receive additional services from our agency, then they can also get up to 6 sessions at $40 a session for mental health counseling. This project basically is something that we do to give back. Family violence intervention is probably one of the things that people don't mention as much when we talk about the domestic violence conversation. It is important that people who perpetrate violence receive services in a way that is trauma informed as well. So I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all. Thank you all for the support. And here's hoping that you all have a super fantastic, mentally healthy day. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Thank you very much. Did you get your shoes? Next, we'll hear from Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel like I'm being rude with my back to you guys, but good afternoon to you all. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to come and hear us present. For those who don't know me, my name is Aisha Ellen. I am the Executive Director of Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful. It is an honor to be a part of this MVP discussion. I must begin, though, by stating that Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful does not receive any MVP funding. I want to make sure that the media knows that. We do not receive any MVP funding, unlike some of the participants here today. However, Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful is an enhancement and complement to the MVP initiative through the Mayor's Clean Streets Matter initiative. We at Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful have expanded our scope beyond just being an organization of distributing cleaning supplies to our community partners. Though we still do this important component, we have widened our scope and reach by expanding our outreach and educational capabilities, thus expecting positive change in Macon-Bibb. For the sake of this presentation, I will focus on 3 primary categories: litter, education, and beautification. When we talk about litter, it cannot nor should not be confused with illegal dumping. From our studies, Macon-Bibb, like many communities, has an issue with both litter and illegal dumping. The definition of both is obvious. Litter is what we see on the roadside, at intersections, and so forth, whereas illegal dumping can be defined as a large quantity of materials placed in an area that is not zoned nor appropriate for such materials, hence becoming a code enforcement violation and a public nuisance. One such study that Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful has undertaken since my appointment in April is the Litter Index Tours. These tours commenced in late April, early May, soon after my tenure began. The tours grew out of an initial walkthrough of the Napier Heights neighborhood, in which Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful partnered with the MVP program, the Bibb County Sheriff's Department, Macon Mental Health Matters, and other community stakeholders. Since that initial litter tour, we have conducted tours in 3 areas of Macon-Bibb: South Macon, Houston Avenue, East Macon and Fort Hill, West Macon around Napier Avenue, and the 4th tour will be scheduled November 8th in North Macon. As a result of each tour, we have seen a direct correlation to violent crimes in these areas where litter and where illegal dumping is prevalent. Excessive litter and illegal dumping affects the overall mindset of the community, especially those of our younger citizens. As a result of our litter index tours, we have been able to identify the challenges of the areas that are affecting the interest and performance of young people, thus bringing us into the education component. Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful has been intentional when it comes to increasing our overall presence in a positive manner by way of our educational initiatives. By way of educational outreach, our goal has been to not just tell young people not to litter, but to in detail explain to them the harmful effects that litter has on our overall environment. Plus, for so many of our young people living in such an environment filled with excessive litter and trash, it has been told to me during a recent visit, well, several months ago, during a visit to 2nd and 3rd graders at Burdell Hunt Elementary School, that they grow mad, sad, and even depressed when they see litter in their neighborhoods and around their school. From my interactions all across this city, I and the Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful board have found that young people are indeed listening. From a student at Sirius Academy telling me about his experience on the Keep Macon-Bibb float during the Cherry Blossom Parade while I was visiting a local church, to a 3rd grader at Tatnall Square Park pointing me out as I was walking and his mom telling me the impact Keep Macon-Bibb's Beautiful visit to his school, Alexander II, made on him. His mother shared with me that now that young man tells everyone he approaches to put trash in the trash can and to not be a litter bug. Part of the success in our educational initiatives and beautification projects have been our corporate partnerships. In education, it has been our relationship with Georgia Power, and I think if they could put it back up on the screen, our relationship with Georgia Power, which culminated into an informative booklet geared toward primary school age students. Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful has gone beyond actual presentations to understanding the psychological impact that litter and trash have on these young minds. It had never been asked of them, how does it make you feel to see litter and trash in your community? We have now asked that question, and through our observations, we formulated action plans to help remedy the situation. Now it brings me to my last component, which is beautification. All these components, litter reduction, education, and beautification, are related and interdependent of one another. One such highlight under the beautification arm is another Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful corporate partner, Cox Communications. This relationship with Cox and KMBB grew from a litter index tour of the South Macon Houston Avenue community. After that tour, Cox stepped up and has been welcomed both in the community and on the Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful board. Our beautification efforts has taken us into areas that have often been overlooked. Immediately upon starting my role as executive director with Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful, I was approached by the president of the Fort Hill East Macon Neighborhood Watch Association. Several citizens in the Fort Hill community wanted to purchase cherry blossom trees to plant throughout the neighborhood. As a result, we partnered with 2 churches in the Fort Hill community, Union Baptist and Greater Lizzieboro. The churches combined purchased a total of 30 cherry blossom trees, and from there, the Fort Hill Cherry Blossom Initiative was born. I recently shared with a church in the Bellevue community what we did with cherry blossom trees in Fort Hill. The people of Bellevue told me that they were delighted in the thought of turning Bellevue pink. So in closing, the efforts of Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful, as I mentioned in my opening, is a true enhancement and complement of the MVP program. We at Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful are doing more than picking up trash. We are picking up an entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thank you very much. I just want to talk for a minute, if I can, about how important blight is. Myself, Commissioner Brunson, and a host of others have actually met at these cleanups, and we've cleaned up beer bottles from behind schools and dirty diapers and marijuana baggies, things that these kids could possibly pick up on their way to school, which lessens what they see in their community and how they feel about it. We've been told about pathways that lead behind schools where criminal activities can take place on the way to school. And I think it's very important that we remember how important blight is in our community. And before I bring up Chesson Community, I want to talk about an event that took place where I was able to sit in on one of their events. And I want to remind everyone of this. These opportunities are available, and I would hope that our community would continue to seek them out. Bring your kids, get involved, and seek these resources because they are there. People work hard to make sure that they are available to each and every member of this community, and they are good resources that will give our youth something different to do, a supervised activity, and open their eyes to possibly something that they never thought they'd see. So if you would, I want to bring up Chesson Community, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chuck Henderson, the Regional Director of Chesson Community. This is my first time presenting anything in front of, I'm grassroots, but Chesson Community started in Macon in May. It's been an organization that began in Athens, Georgia over 20 years ago, but it was created by a Maconite who actually grew up on Houston Avenue. He stayed in Pendleton Homes. But during his juvenile, he was in and out of trouble. And his mentor implemented chess as a way to control his behavior. So from that, 22 years later, this is where we at. Now, far as you can see, it was an organization that cultivates youth in areas of leadership and strategic thinking. The game of chess is used as a modality in which the youth are making develop problem-solving skills, and also foster conversations about stressors and pressures which Macon youth face. It's scientifically known that chess strengthens and aids the development of the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is what really gives you that control over your emotions. It gives you that ability to plan and strategize. And between the ages of, I want to say 5 to 8, that's when it's definitely needed, that structure. And just in Macon, we've seen a lot of the youth, as far as that type of development, that has to be fostered within a cultural setting. And so Chess and Community, we try to implement cultural activities. Now here's the evidence-based model. Chess and Community uses the evidence-based positive youth development model. And what that means is we, within the community, or should I say our students that we gather, we will see the ones that exemplify leadership qualities. And what we would do, we would recognize those qualities, and we would try to hone those skills within them by giving them incentives, different type of jobs, so that the other kids and students will be influenced by their behavior. Okay. So, and also we implement operative learning, and also, just by observational learning, or should I say operative conditioning and observational learning. Those are one of the key developments in youth development. So, and we see that, so as far as that cultural element, these programs of location and progress that we have the Pawn Accelerator, which is at, it's not Booker T. Washington Center, it's the L.H. Williams Community Recreation Center. But the Pawn Accelerator program is a program that we have 16 students from middle school to high school. And what we do, they actually, it's an 8 weeks program, and they put together a AI robot. This robot is used in Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, in their engineering departments. And what it does, it shows them how to develop their coding skills, basic coding skills from block scratch all the way to Python. Python is what's used in pretty much everything that we use today. So what we're doing, we're not only giving them STEM, but we're also giving them avenues of pretty much employment, because we have high school students in this who have never took STEM classes, never dabbled into coding, and they love it. And we actually had an event this Saturday that was an excellent turnout. We invited, we tried, see, I'm not on this end. I'm usually in the ground, in the trenches, but our program director, she invited, a lot of people. The DA, she came out, thank you. And it was a great event. We also have Chess and Wings. That's at the Mercer Village. We host that once a month. And what that does, that incorporates the family structure. You can't really augment a child's behavior without knowing the family structure, without knowing the home, without knowing the environment where they come from. So we try to incorporate the parents to come out, and let's see how we can make this, a family structure. And that goes back to the cultural element. Chess and Culture. That's at Homeland Village Cultural Community Center, and that's located in West Macon. And what that does, that gives the children a cultural, historical, heritage perspective. A lot of the children that we foster, that we deal with, are African American. A lot of them don't even know about Dr. Charles Douglas. That's one of the first, African American millionaires in Central Georgia. One of the first African American millionaires in America. So a lot of kids don't even know who he is. Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, a lot of kids do not know who he is. And so with that element, as you know, culture pretty much predicates the development of a child. We have open play chess at Bloomfield Gilead Library and L.H. Williams Recreation Center bi-weekly. Now, open chess, that's pretty much to the public. We invite and we encourage parents to come out, older siblings, and what that is, that's a cultural engagement with the parents and with the students. And that gives a lot of students they don't have dinners to where they can have one-on-ones with their mothers, their fathers, and their siblings. So this gives them that 2 hours, gives them that one-on-one engagement that sometimes they never get. So we implement that. And the last Saturday of the month at Linwood Cemetery Community, it's a community service cleanup, I'm sorry. But now that's the historical Linwood Cemetery. That's actually where Charles Douglas is buried, and a host of other prominent African Americans who were very influential not only in Middle Georgia but also in America. So that's pretty much what Chesson Community is about. Like I say, we've been here since June, and we appreciate the MVP, the program as far as combating violence, and it's not going to change overnight. So that's our perspective. We deal with kids, and the youth are the future. So if we want to stop the gun violence, we got to get these kids at an early age and keep them and continue your program. So the results are elementary and middle school students will participate in more positive activities in school. Parents and teachers will observe positive behavior change in the youth. Chesson Community will provide high school students with a path which will lead them to the workforce or community outreach, college, and entrepreneurship. Our next 4 months, that's going to be the emphasis. We got book clubs, we have debate teams coming up, and we also have apprenticeship programs in electrical and IT jobs. In Athens, we're connected with Caterpillar and the Southern Company, so we're going to try to incorporate that into this area and just try to put a curve on this violence and gun violence amongst our youth. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I still don't know how to do either, so we're on the same page. Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Next Level.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Lakeisha Toomer. I'm the Executive Director of Next Level Community Development Center, a 501c3 community-based organization located in Sub-South Macon. I would like to first say thank you to the Commission, thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the Community Foundation and this great city for believing in us and trusting us to do the work that we so love to do. I think we can all agree that there's a lot of work to be done here in our community, and that our young people are urgently in need of support, accountability, direction to change the trajectory of their lives. With over 22 years of serving at-risk youth, ages 5 to 18 years in Macon-Bibb County, Georgia, Next Level's mission is to educate, enlighten, and empower young people and their families to make healthy lifestyle choices. Participating families must fall 150% below the national poverty level and or qualify for assistance through Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services in order to receive our program services. We want to serve the young people that need us the most. We are an academic-based program with a very intense youth development component. We strive to change habits and transform lives. Our students and families come to us initially for academic support. They stay with us because of the relationships that they build with us. On average, students participating in our programs stay active and involved with us through their senior year in high school. They are educated academically, they are enlightened regarding how they can change the trajectory of their lives, and they're empowered to do just that. This is how, with your support, we play a part in decreasing crime and violence in our community. With our partnership with Bibb County Board of Education, we serve 14 different Bibb County schools, providing a high-quality after-school program, summer program, and elite leadership team. We're a year-round program providing a safe, supervised environment where students are loved, held accountable, supported academically, socially, and emotionally. Students in need of academic remediation are receiving one-on-one supplemental support to get them where they need to be. Students struggling mentally are receiving the individualized and in some cases, many cases I must say, family counseling needed to deal with underlying issues. Through our elite leadership team, we offer opportunities for students who will commit to serving our community in various ways to be a part of a cohort where they are prepped and primed to be the leaders of tomorrow. This group is exposed to different career fields and given the opportunity to work in interested career fields for 6 weeks every summer. Students are paid for their time and consistently participate in financial literacy courses. One student in particular, who spent 10 years within the program, shared how being a part of the program helped her solidify the direction in which she wanted to go professionally. She spent 3 years in the Elite Leadership Program with the opportunity to work in 3 different medical fields. I am proud to say she now serves as a registered nurse, specifically serving those that are underserved. The organization serves an average of 222 parents annually with its community-wide parent sessions. Sessions are facilitated by professionals and focus on behaviors, how to prevent the onset of risky behaviors, financial literacy, violence and crime, and mental health issues. We try to meet families where they are. Many times we find our parents were not parented, and so they really struggle with parenting. It's really difficult to do something that you've never been exposed to and no one has ever educated you on. We've been very intentional with our partnership with Macon Violence and Prevention to make sure we meet our parents where they are. You cannot understand how important it is that we not just focus on the young people that we serve, but that we also focus on the families. We cannot make the impact needed with the child if we don't make the impact on the entire household. We're teaching intervention and prevention sessions daily during our after-school program, and some are utilizing evidence-based curriculums taught by certified, trained educators. Students take sessions on gang violence, drug and alcohol prevention, financial literacy, social and emotional learning, sex education, and college and career readiness. Daily, our high school students are being prepared for their next phase in life through college and career readiness sessions. Students research trades, potential opportunities. They attend an average of 6 colleges annually, with 2 of those colleges being outside of the state of Georgia. Our students have toured as far south as Florida State and FAMU, to as far north as Princeton, Parsons, and Howard University. We spend 3 days and 2 nights outside of the state of Georgia every year, so our young people are exposed and culturally educated. We believe hopes and dreams are triggered by exposure. Young people are depressed and struggling to find their way. Our partnership with Macon Violence Prevention allows us to offer up to 8 sessions of individual and or family counseling to students and families. When people do not deal with their underlying issues, they will manifest themselves in different ways. So when our children are struggling academically and our children are struggling socially and emotionally, most of the time there are underlying issues that have not quite been dealt with. A case file is kept on each client that includes a rigorous accountability component to ensure students and parents follow through. It's one thing for us to have the expectation, but we must inspect what we expect to ensure change takes place and compliance is in place. Our services are all free at no charge to the families that we serve. We've served over 175 students. 69 students are currently being served in our after-school program. 10 youth are a part of our elite leadership team. 22 youth and counting are slated for individual and family counseling. 65% of the students served are middle and high school students. Of those 65%, 50% of those students are black males. Let me say this. We get a lot of negative publicity about our black males. But at Next Level, we have black males to show up every day, not because they have to, but because they want to, and they want better for their lives. 100% of our families participate in parent empowerment sessions, because you see, that's a requirement. While our program is free to the families that we serve, we do believe that parents should have a buy-in. So they must attend those parent empowerment sessions in order for their students to participate in our services. They show up, they volunteer, they participate. With our partnership with Macon Violence and Prevention, we will play a part in decreasing the crime in our community By providing a place for academic support, remediation, intervention, and prevention sessions, college and career readiness, counseling services to the young people and families that need us the most, we aim to serve our entire community, whether students are enrolled in our after-school, summer program, or leadership program. We want to continue to be a resource hub where families can get what they want, what they need, and be held accountable and change the trajectory of their lives. We believe the numbers and our students tell our story best. We boast a 100% high school graduation rate, 95% promotion rate, 99% post-secondary matriculation rate, where students attend colleges that they tour while they were participating in our program. We have a 96% average daily attendance during our summer program. That means the young people show up at 7:30 a.m. and they're with us till 4 o'clock p.m. 96% of the time. We have a 94% average daily attendance with our after-school program, and 99% of our students have not been a part of in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and have not had any infractions with the courts. Kyler Andrews, who's a FAMU student, says his experience at Next Level has been one of the most iconic moments of his life. Bethany Jackson, a Central High School graduate, now attending Albany State University, called Next Level game-changing for her life. Kevion Johnson stated, "This program truly brings you out of your shell and help you figure out who you are." Jordan Ray, a Brenau University student, attributes his ability to lead, be himself, and be confident in what the future holds for him to his 8 years of year-round programming at Next Level. Ryan Sharp, another Albany State University student, stated, "Being a black male with the odds stacked against me, Next Level gave me the opportunity to change the narrative." I say let's continue changing narratives in our city. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ms. Toomer.
Thank you. Before we move on, I'd like to ask our presenters to try your best to stay within your time. We had a lot more to present, and we want to make sure that we should respect everyone's time. So if we can get the crisis line next, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Dee Sims, and I'm the Director of Crisis Line and Safe House of Central Georgia. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today and tell you about an initiative that we have started under the MVP grant. What we have focused on is victims of domestic violence, and our goals are to increase victim safety and increase offender accountability. It's important to note that there is a great prevalence of domestic violence in our community. I'd like to look at, from 2011 to 2020, 1,516 Georgians lost their lives to domestic violence. Bibb County had 18 domestic violence deaths between 2013 and 2017. In 72% of those cases, the cause of death was through firearms. In 2021, there were 6 domestic violence homicides in Bibb County, and only through half of 2022, we've already had 5 deaths from domestic violence. Crisis Line on an annual basis serves around 1,750 individuals who are impacted by domestic violence. That is through our programs at Crisis Line. These numbers actually scream for a coordinated and effective response to this issue. And that is the very reason that I'm here today with the very adamant support of our Bibb County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to kind of go back to our previous presentation with you when we talked about Bibb County being awarded the Family Justice Center grant. We have now named our Family Justice Center One Safe Place Macon, and we're very thrilled to have a large partnership from our community looking at serving victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and human trafficking. Today, the project that we are working on with Bibb County Sheriff's Office focuses on victims of domestic violence. Crisis Line identified a three-pronged approach on increasing safety for victims of domestic violence and holding offenders accountable. We partnered with BSO to do three things: to increase training efforts to ensure deputies are familiar with the dynamics of domestic violence, the lethality risk for victims, and the enforcement and service of temporary protective orders. And then secondly, to provide for on-site security for weekly community-based domestic violence support groups. And third, to shore up efforts to serve TPOs to ensure that domestic violence offenders are held accountable and victim safety is enhanced. Our goals with this project are to see 95% participation by deputies in the training programs that we will be presenting, 100% of support groups with on-site security, and a marked decrease in the number of protective order cases being dismissed due to lack of service. One of the things that we identified in looking at this with our community partners was where are we best able to improve what we're doing in this community. Those in our community that are experiencing domestic violence often reach out to law enforcement first as their point of contact to get help and to stop the violence in their homes. Law enforcement also plays a very vital role in ensuring that temporary protective orders, which is a type of restraining order available to victims of domestic violence in Superior Court, that they are personally served as required by law and that they can then be enforced. It is important to note that the International Association of Chiefs of Police has noted the crime of domestic violence is complex, and law enforcement officers often feel frustrated and discouraged when responding. Officers provide as much support to victims as possible, but when equipped with a better understanding of the nuances and dynamics that in intimate partner crime, they can more effectively address victims' needs and hold offenders accountable. Law enforcement across our nation realizes that domestic violence is complicated. It's a pattern of abusive behavior used by one partner to gain or maintain control over another intimate partner. This pattern can often be violent, but oftentimes involves tactics outside of violent behavior. It involves financial abuse, emotional abuse, intimidation, threats, coercion, and other acts that would not necessarily lead to arrest, but would qualify for receiving a temporary protective order. These tactics result in victims facing tremendous barriers in escaping violent relationships. Financial abuse specifically can be extremely difficult to overcome for victims. Abusers can destroy a victim's credit, deny them access to money, sometimes money that the victim herself has actually been earning, force them to quit jobs, or cause them to be terminated. Because of this, leaving can be very difficult at times for victims. Leaving a victim unable to provide financially for themselves, unable to qualify for housing, or unable to secure employment. Many of the services that we provide at Crisis Line are aimed at eliminating these barriers for victims. TPOs are one of the sources that we can turn to help victims. They can order an abuser to pay child support and spousal support, which can work to eliminate some of the financial barriers that a victim may face. A protective order can give a victim temporary use and possession of a residence that she shared with her abuser, preventing homelessness for the victim and her children. If these resources or these protections are not available if a TPO is not served and cannot be enforced. So with these funds that have been made available through the MVP grant, we are proposing to pay deputies working on an off-duty capacity to bolster the efforts of BSO to serve TPOs. TPO cases typically begin with our advocates at Crisis Line going with a victim and talking with a judge and getting an ex parte order. But because that order is given without the abuser having an opportunity to be heard, it is a temporary order, and it must be served within 30 days. So we have a 30-day window in which BSO civil process can serve these orders. If it doesn't get served, it gets dismissed. One of the things that we noted in January and February, Crisis Line and Safe House filed 44 temporary protective orders. 18 of those orders were dismissed for lack of service. That's 41%. So what we are aiming to do is provide additional hours that deputies can be available to serve these TPOs. Maybe in non-typical times, weekends, middle of the night, times that civil process is not usually working. We want to increase the effectiveness of service in this community. One of the things that we are also hoping to do, or we will be doing, is providing security at our support groups. You know, support groups are not, the location of our support group is not made public. You have to call in and register and say you want to be a part of the support group, and then you're given the location. But we know that a lot of domestic violence cases also involve stalking. That stalking can be through electronic surveillance or just following a victim. So it is not unheard of that an abuser could show up at the support group and cause a disruption. With on-site security, we give victims the confidence that they are secure in coming to support group, that they have the peace to engage and begin healing from the trauma that they've experienced, and they can do so knowing that there are protections in place, because our off-duty deputies that are there providing support and providing that security, they keep a surveillance around the surrounding premises. They are there the entire time. They ensure that victims can come into support group and exit support group safe without fear of being attacked and having other issues, come up as far as the abuse that they have been suffering from their abuser. We will also be implementing a very strenuous training program. One of the things that I previously mentioned is law enforcement across the nation has recognized that they need more training. Who better to train these deputies in the nuances of domestic violence than those that are working in this field daily? So that is one of the commitments that we have going forward with BSO. We will provide training modules so that all of their deputies have the opportunity to better understand the dynamics of domestic violence and how they can most appropriately respond when they are responding on these cases. Some deputies have estimated that upwards of 60% of the cases, the calls that they go out on, are domestic violence cases. So we are hoping that with this additional training, we will have better responses to these cases, and hopefully we will reduce the number of instances of domestic violence, but hopefully also increase the accountability for offenders and decrease these homicides that are resulting from domestic violence cases. With these funds, I see that we will be able to significantly impact our community's response to domestic violence. Our Family Justice Center, One Safe Place Macon, actually is designed to be a one-stop shop for sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, and human trafficking. With these funds, we have really identified one of the significant barriers that we have in our community for victims of domestic violence, and it is due to the Family Justice Center actually being a part of the MVP strategic plan that we have become, I guess, more collaborative in our approach with our community partners, and really had the definite support of the Sheriff's Office in moving this project forward. I appreciate your help, your support through the MVP grant, and the opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sims.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from CASA.
Good afternoon. My name is Susanna Patterson, and I'm the Executive Director of Central Georgia CASA, where we provide volunteer advocates for children who are in foster care. And our MVP program really focuses on increasing the volunteers who are serving our youth in foster care who are 12 years old and older. So on the slides in front of you, you can see the numbers and the data that indicate that we are on track to meet our metrics related to our MVP funding. And this is really good news. But today I want to talk to you about hope more broadly. For the last 25 years, Central Georgia CASA volunteers have brought hope through their advocacy for children and youth in the foster care system in Macon-Bibb County. Our volunteers are the caring, consistent presence in the lives of our foster children and youth who bring hope into their daily lives. A hope in a belief that their tomorrow will be better than today, and an assurance that the statistics that exist for our children and youth in foster care don't have to determine their future. And those statistics related to foster care and crime and violence and homelessness and so many more terrible outcomes are absolutely abysmal. Frankly, they're a national tragedy. But as we tell our volunteers, you have the power to say that this is not how the story is going to end. And so our CASA volunteers take that confidence and that determination and that hope to our youth who face unique challenges. And so over just the last few months, and certainly over the last 25 years, our CASA volunteers have helped ensure that our teens in foster care have access to meaningful in-person counseling services to address their underlying trauma. Our CASA volunteers have advocated for youth in the schools to ensure that they are receiving appropriate services, as well as to ensure that they're receiving academic instruction that is appropriate for their actual educational level. CASA volunteers really in the courtroom are there to ensure that the court and that the bureaucratic structures that exist not only within our legal system but within our social services systems, that all of those people recognize that the file on their desk represents a real person with real feelings and real hopes and dreams. And so our CASA volunteers not only advocate for the best interests of children in foster care, but they also inform the court of the wishes and desires of those youth, even when we disagree with what the child or the youth may want, because it amplifies their voice and empowers youth in the courtroom. When necessary, CASAs are present with youth at delinquency hearings to support our youth and to provide important contextual information to the court. And CASA volunteers work with the Department of Family and Children's Services to advocate for children and youth to be placed with their siblings and to maintain contact with relatives when that is safe and appropriate, because we know that when we have those connections, that when we know where we come from, that we all have better outcomes. So I'm sure this all sounds lovely and uplifting. And if you're looking at the data, you're seeing an increase in the 12-year-old plus youth that we've served in this first quarter of our MVP grant from 11 youth to 19 youth. And you're probably thinking that's great for those 8 additional children, but what in the world does that mean for our system and for our community? But that's the best part. Because CASA's advocacy and really the whole MVP program is like a gathering rainstorm. So when a rainstorm first starts, there's a few drops here and there. And it doesn't really get the ground wet. It doesn't register on a rain gauge. But the people who are hit by the drops, the individual pieces of paper that might get hit by a raindrop, certainly notice its presence. And as the storm begins to gather a little bit more and rain hits the ground more and, everything gets wet, maybe people walk a little faster and umbrellas come out because more and more people are being impacted. And so behavior starts to change. And finally, there's a downpour. and we all see the effects, and we all feel the effects, and our whole community reacts to this change in conditions. And CASA's advocacy, and indeed the advocacy of all of our MVP efforts, are like that gathering storm. A few youth and families are touched and changed at first, but over time, change occurs in the life of our community. Change where we address trauma, where youth graduate from high school on time, where youth and young adults are able to find meaningful employment and avoid crime and violence, where generational cycles throughout our community of crime and violence, abuse, neglect are broken, and where our community as a whole isn't just surviving, but thriving. My hope and desire, and really confidence in hearing all of these reports today, is that Central Georgia CASA and the work of all of our MVP partners is that we will create this downpour of hope in Macon-Bibb County, because Macon-Bibb does not have to end up where the statistics on crime and violence say that we're going. So thank you. Thank you for allowing and empowering us and so many others to be a part of a community that is willing to stand up and say that this is not how our story ends. And thank you to the commissioners and to the Community Foundation for funding this work so that our tomorrow can be better than our today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Adams. I'm with the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority, and on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority, thank you for having me here today. Thank you for having me here to present. Thank you for your support, for your funding. While it is not tied to the MVP program, we are still very integrally involved in the success, and your success with the MVP program is our success. And so wanted to talk a little bit about the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority. I'm very fortunate to have presented in front of this group before many times, so I know you're very familiar with our operations, but we have continued to work with the Georgia Department of Economic Development, who has offices around the world. And so our community here is well represented around the world, and we've been very fortunate that we've had a lot of exposure over the last few years. And I did want to highlight just some of the things that we've been doing. You'll see some numbers that are up there on the screen that talk a little bit about just since 2021 what we have been able to do, because I think it's important that we point out, as you know, our mission is job creation and growing the tax base, that the economic opportunities are one of the greatest crime preventers, and with that, crime prevention becomes more economic opportunities. And so we wanted to just highlight what your efforts and your support of the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority has brought to this community, and we are hopeful that the efforts that you're taking on will continue that. But you will see there on the screen, this is just since 2017, and I was just spending some time to add up some of these numbers. You're looking at over $1.5 billion in private investment. You're looking at nearly 3,000 new jobs that have been created, and with those 3,000 new jobs, we're seeing nearly $150 million in annual payroll that is being made possible by those opportunities. And so I know that time is of the essence today, and there's a lot of others that will going after me, but I did just want to take a minute to point out that your support of us has allowed these successes to happen. And so we have an incredible amount of opportunities that have come online and will continue to come online in the coming years as these companies continue to grow and expand here in our community. So again, thank you for your efforts. We believe that these efforts will continue to enhance our successes that we've been having here in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Next, we will hear about some lawsuits and blights from our attorney before and after crime stats around the closure of some of the businesses.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Commissioners, for having me here. I'm Michael McNeil, Senior Assistant County Attorney. And I just want to talk about a project that I've been working on this year involving bringing nuisance actions against a variety of businesses that have been among some of the worst locations for crime in our jurisdiction. And I have a PowerPoint that I'd like to go through. I want to start just by showing you the law that we've been filing these actions under. This is the General Nuisance Abatement Law. And it says, any nuisance which tends to the immediate annoyance of the public in general, is manifestly injurious to the public health or safety, or tends greatly to corrupt the manners and morals of the public, may be abated by an order of the judge of the Superior Court. And so that's the statutory authority we've been proceeding under. A couple of things I want to mention about this. The law looks only at whether there's a problematic condition on the property. It doesn't require the county to prove in court that the defendants are acting with criminal intent or moral culpability. Instead, the law only requires the county to show to the satisfaction of the court that there's something that can be done within the defendant's control to help mitigate the problem conditions that are on the property. If we could go to the next slide, please. So these are the 7 properties that I'm going to be talking about with you today. These are the cases that we've brought to date. The selection process for these properties was based on research and data analysis from the Sheriff's Office Crime Analysis Division. And the 2 things that we're looking for were, first of all, those businesses and locations in the community that had the highest incidence of serious and violent crimes. And second, those locations in the community that had the highest incidence of E911 calls for service. And so, because even if an individual response to an E911 call is not directly a crime incident, if you have hundreds going to the same location, it's a significant drain on the police resources that we have for the community. So the first business that we addressed was the Magnolia Court Motels, 4739 Houston Road. If you'll go to the next slide, please. This motel had its water cut off for non-payment back in the spring. It was rendered per se uninhabitable under the building code. If you don't have water, people can't live in the building. And so there were several long-term residents on that property. We sent code enforcement in and they looked at the building, and there were a bunch of other code enforcement violations that they found. And so we took the property owner to municipal court based on the violations, based on the fact that they were keeping an uninhabitable place of residence. And the owner was sentenced to jail for 7 days for those violations. He served 3 days, during which there were many contacts made with his lawyer and my office. And we worked out a consent order where he agreed to close, secure, and eventually demolish the building, all at his own expense, and he was released from jail. And so the results on the next slide are that all the long-term residents that were in the hotel or motel were successfully rehoused to other permanent housing solutions in partnership with the EOC, and the structure was demolished last month. And so if you drive by there now, it's just grass where the blighted motel used to be. Next slide, we're going to talk about Friends Food Mart at 3350 Houston Avenue. This is right across the street from Pendleton Homes. On the picture, it's the middle building with the yellow car in front of it.
Mr.
Next
McNeil,
slide.
if you don't mind just speaking to the mic a little bit more, because of the air, we had a little trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry. Okay. So this was one of the highest incidents of crime spots in Macon before this nuisance action. The action was taken to close the store by judicial order on June 8th, and so between January and June 7th, there were 76 crime reports, including 3 homicides, 6 aggravated assaults, 9 auto thefts, kidnappings, other assaults, weapons offenses. If you go to the next slide, looking at the results, what happened after we closed the store? The court ordered a temporary shutdown on June 8th of 2022. They had to cease all business activity. They had a hearing at the end of June, and the court entered a modified order on July 1st, allowing them to reopen, but they chose not to. They've not since reopened. Prior to that closure, the first half of the year, there were 45 911 calls to that location. There have been 4 since then. Crime is down significantly at that location. There have been no homicides, no kidnappings, no auto thefts. There's been 1 weapons offense. So a significant improvement in the crime at that location. The next slide, we have Bridgeview Inn and Suites over at 6000 Harrison Road. That's the blue building that you see on here. This is near the I-475 Eisenhower interchange. And you'll see the parking lot on the right. That's the Walmart. They're off of Eisenhower. Next slide. This also had a significant history of criminal activity in and around the hotel. We had 75 crime reports before we took action on July 15th. And so from January until July 14th, there were over 40 property crime incidents. There were multiple drug offenses. There was a sexual assault. On July 15th, we filed this lawsuit in May, but on July 15th, we signed a consent order and filed it in partnership with the owners. They agreed to increase security, increase their room fees. I believe they were charging $29 a night for the room before that, and improve measures to keep people who are not actually guests at the hotel off the premises, to track which cars are cars belonging to guests, which are not, and to send away those that weren't. The first half of the year, there were 134 911 calls for service, down to 23 since July, and the total crime reports are down to 24. Property offenses, as I said, were more than 40. We've had about 13 since then. Next slide, we have America's Best Value Inn. This is on Romiser Drive on the other side of I-475 at the 475 Eisenhower Interchange. That's right across the street from Middle Georgia State University. And if you look at the facts before that store, we did a consent order with that store as well in mid-July. There were 15 criminal reports, 122 E911 calls for service at that location. Through July, there was a homicide, a couple of drug offenses, a couple of auto thefts. Mostly this one was selected because of the very, very high incidence of 911 calls. And we did a consent order with the owners on that store, on that motel, filed it July 19th. Similar provisions, they had to add security, increase room fees, improve measures to keep non-guests off the premises. And I will say, to the credit of the management at this motel, they were very accommodating. They were very open to making changes and eager to take steps that would help make their own properties safe. And so that's ideally what we want to see out of these actions, is for the owners to take willful, intentional responsibility to make their properties safe. 911 calls since the consent order was entered have fallen to 17. And there's only been one crime report. There was one minor drug offense at that property since July 19th. So these steps are, it's not 100%, but these steps are having a significant impact. The next store that I want to talk about is M&M Food Mart over at 2760 Montpelier Avenue. That's the one just shown right in the middle of the picture there. This has been a store that has had a high incidence of crime for 10 years or more. And in talking with the chief criminal analyst for the Sheriff's Department, Sergeant Santel Smith, this has been just known widely in the Sheriff's Office as one of the hottest crime spots in Macon, going back for years. And so we got an order from the Superior Court on September 16th requiring them to cease all business activity. From January until that order was entered and served on September 16th, there had been 12 aggravated assaults, multiple auto thefts, multiple drug offenses, multiple weapons offenses, almost 100 911 calls there, many calls related to gunfire, people calling from inside of the store saying that they were scared because of the other patrons that had come, participating in gang activities in the store, things like that. We also have ShotSpotter microphone systems set up near M&M Food Mart, and that system went live on February 24th. Since that system went live, there had been hundreds of gunfire incidents and thousands of rounds fired. It was about 1,400 rounds fired in the neighborhoods around M&M grocery store. In the 3 weeks prior, there were 21 gunfire incidents, 173 rounds within 400 feet of this store. And in the surrounding neighborhoods, 47 shooting incidents, 226 rounds fired. Going to the results, after the store closed September 16th, there had been no violent crime, no drug crime at the property, a few E911 calls, but far fewer than were before. Only one gunfire incident within 3 weeks after. 3 rounds were fired, and that was a 95% reduction in incidents, a 98% reduction in rounds fired in that same 3 week to 3 week comparison. 18 gunfire incidents and 57 rounds fired in the surrounding neighborhoods within 3 weeks after the closing. So that's a 61% reduction in shootings, a 74% reduction in rounds fired. And to the best of the knowledge of everybody that's been working on this case, there's been no other events that have happened in that neighborhood that would have any contribution to this at all. Closing this store is the only precipitating factor that the county is aware of. I've got two more hotels to talk about. The next one is Red Carpet Inn, 2690 Riverside Drive. It's kind of that circular building. It's across from the I-75 North ramp at Pierce Avenue. There was a lot of criminal activity at this hotel as well. A lot of E911 calls for service. Between January and September, we had 165 911 calls. There were a lot of overdoses at this store. And this has been one of the highest locations for drug overdoses in Macon, and that was one of the reasons why we filed this action at this store, is to help prevent some of these drug overdoses, or at least give them the tools to respond if there are drug overdose incidents. We signed a consent order, going to the results slide, on September 23rd. Some similar provisions for security, increase the room fees, improve measures to keep non-guests off the property. Also, just kind of addressing the fact that there have been overdoses at the property. E911 calls for service have plummeted since then. We've had only about 5 since September 23rd, and no crime reports whatsoever at the store, which it's been about a month, but that's still significant to have no crime whatsoever there. The last hotel I want to talk about, this is the Macon Inn at 1044 Riverside Drive, and this one had even more overdoses than the Red Carpet Inn. And so in 5 years, or 4.5 years, December 17 to May 22, there were 375 overdose calls at this hotel alone. Year to date, there were over 250 911 calls for service. 44 of those calls they're coded as medical service. Generally, in this context, that's a code for a suspected overdose. This lawsuit is currently pending. We've been talking with the lawyer for the hotel. They've been receptive to our conversations, and we're in the process of working out a consent order that will hopefully address this history of overdoses, address the particular incidents at the hotel, and make it so that this is a welcoming and safe place for Maconites and for travelers to visit. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from our sheriff.
Sheriff Davis and any of his representatives, we'll hear from you now.
Good afternoon, everybody. We have till 6 o'clock, right? Well, we may take a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but we won't take an hour and a half, I promise. And if anybody has any questions, I know we're not taking any, but you feel free to email us or get in contact with us, and we'll be happy to follow up with those, because we're going to cover a lot of ground here today. And these have been some great presentations that we've seen. So we're seeing some great movement on violent crime and things happening in our community. So we're sort of batting clean up, but certainly last, and as compared to some of the work to the others, I won't know whether we're least or not, but we're working. So we're gonna start off our calls for service, and we're gonna compare mainly this year. You're gonna see a lot of talk between second quarter and third quarter, and that sort of puts it in the context of when the things have started to working with the MVP program and things that we were seeing happening out in the county in the first quarter. So we did some things, and we'll talk about some of our operations that we put into place in the third quarter that you'll see some real some significant differences in crime stats between the two quarters because of some of the things that we've done and some of the things that we're going forward. So when we look at the quarter comparisons, second quarter to third quarter, our calls for service, these are just the raw calls for service through the E911 center. These are calls for everything from barking dogs to shootings to everything. So you can see that they're up a couple of 2% from the second quarter to the third quarter, and then a year-to-date comparison, they are up about 3% for the year. So about 85,000 calls in that amount of time. You can do some ciphering and figure out how many that is per day, per minute. The phone is always ringing, and so that's that. We go to the next one. The select IBR crimes, and when we talk about IBR, is incident-based reporting system. A lot of us, you probably have heard talk about UCR, what they call the Uniform Crime Reporting System. Several years ago, the federal government went to a new system that basically took some of the components of the old UCR and then added some other components in that we'll talk about in a little bit, that is incident-based and more victim-based. And so those numbers, and when you see IBRS, IBRS, or we term it as IBRS, that's what we used to would call the old UCR rate. And those are up when you look at all of the crimes. And I'm going to ask my crime statistician, our crime analysis, Sergeant Sandstel Smith, to come up and tell us what crimes are we talking about when we say select crimes on the IBRS crimes.
Good afternoon, everybody. There are 23 categories for incident-based reporting. For our presentation today, we're only going to be talking about 8 of those.
If you don't mind speaking that mic there, sir.
All right. Can you hear me better now? Sorry about that. So for the incident-based reporting, there are 23 crime categories. But for our today's presentation, to shorten it, we're going to be talking about what they're called the deadly sevens. And my Siri want to talk to y'all too. But we're going to be talking about 7 of those crime categories, which are going to be our aggravated assaults, homicides, burglaries, rapes, as well as entering autos, larcenies, which include entering autos and shopliftings and arsons.
And those are some of the more serious, and the way that we break this down, you have persons crimes, which would be your homicides, murders, aggravated assaults, rapes, that sort of things. Then you have property crimes, which would be your burglaries, commercial burglaries, auto thefts, that sort of thing. So all total, those crimes, the violent crime comparison has been down by 13% from quarter 3 to quarter 2, and that's the result of some of the things that we have done. But we have shown that amount of decrease from the third quarter as compared to the second quarter of this year. Now the next one. Unfortunately, our property crime has gone up by about 10%, but the commercial burglaries as well as entering in autos and auto thefts have sort of led the way in those crime numbers. And sometimes you can have a great number of incidents happen that can raise up your percentage, and so that's something we're looking at. One of the things that we have noticed that residential burglaries are still staying a little bit low. We noticed that trend going down when the pandemic struck, and so those commercial burglaries are still trending low as compared to some of the other burglaries. And it's sort of like the stock market. Sometimes something will go up and then it goes back down. But we did have a 10% increase in property crimes in the third quarter as compared to the second quarter. Now, some of the things that we've done to combat violent crimes, and that's what we were talking about that resulted in some of these decreases in violent crimes, the Operation Four Corners and then another Operation Red Zone. And what these did, they entail working with citizens and businesses to decrease the criminal opportunities within the community. And the deterrence was the primary focus of these operations, implementing a crime prevention mechanism which conveys accountability and proactive policing with street-level apprehensions. Together with problem-oriented policing and predictive policing, we were able to do some things with these 2 operations. Four Corners, you can go to the next slide. Four Corners resulted in about 400 arrests. You remember, we probably saw something on the news about that last week. That operation took place over about 60 to 90 days during the summer, and we had all types of felony cases. We took a number of guns off the street, 91 firearms seized. We arrested almost 20 convicted felons with firearms, so it really made an impact. We think that some of the things that we did in that may have prevented a homicide or two, and it certainly prevented some shootings and some other things. The other case that we had, Operation Red Zone, was in conjunction with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, Department of Community Supervision, and the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. There were a number of people who had serious criminal warrants out, violation of probation warrants, some other serious warrants that we arrested a number of individuals with those. There were 10 individuals that were arrested with that, and we seized about 12 guns just off of those individuals that were arrested. So that had some of an impact on some of the criminal element that we got. Some of the drugs you see on the pictures there, some of the drugs that were seized, you just runs the gamut: marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, ecstasy, crack cocaine, and heroin. So we ridded the streets, or took off of the streets, a great number of all different types of drugs that were out there. And then the other one was an operation we call Street Defender. That was all through the summer, and I've gotten calls from commissioners as well as people in the community about people gathering and congregating down at Carolyn Creighton Park, doing the burnouts or the engaged in some forms of the street racing. Well, we did an operation there. Sunday night was a week ago, and was able to tow in about 30 or 40 cars and made about 30 or 40 arrests on individuals. I think we sent the message that's not the only place that we've gotten complaints on, so there will be other operations similar to this in other parts of the community. We hope that those individuals that are doing that in other parts of the community have seen the message of this and maybe not do it, but if they get careless, we will be watching, and we will be back to watch them and do that. One of the things that the violent crimes that dropped by that 13% from comparing the third quarter to the second quarter, the commercial robberies, one thing to point to you is commercial robberies were down by 71% during that time, and that's part of taking some of these individuals off the streets that are engaged in that activity, plus being seen, being in those areas where these things may be prone to happen, has resulted in a deterrent effect of where that number went down. Another thing that we looked at are people's houses getting fired into. The street term is getting your house shot up. Well, we had certainly a decrease in that. We had a 47% reduction in the number of houses that were shot up during that time, and that resulted in a 55% reduction in the number of victims that we had for all types of aggravated assault during that time. So having these deputies out there in this concerted effort in some of these areas that we pinpointed has made a difference during that quarter, and that we continuing on that going on through the rest of the year. Now, when we talk about Shot Spotters, that has really been a good program for us. There's been skeptics, and it's one of those things that you kind of have to show me or how it works, but it really has come forward for us. And during this time of this operation, when you compare quarter to quarter, the 911 calls dropped by 15%, and then the Shot Spotter alerts dropped by 25%, and then the Shot Spotter rounds detected dropped by 12%. And the data that we're able to get from the Shot Spotter has been very helpful to us in solving crimes. It helps us to pinpoint who may or may not have even fired a round first and done those kinds of things. And there has been some cases where we've got the Shot Spotter call even before we get the 911 call about somebody getting shot. So it has in some cases been a lifesaver, or gets help on the way to people before anybody else even calls. So we found that typically the Shot Spotter call comes in about a minute or two or three before the 911 call comes in before when something has happened. So we're able to mount a quicker response and a more effective response. When we talk about traffic collisions, this is year-to-date comparison. Our total number of traffic accidents, traffic collisions is down by 12%, and the total number of fatalities are down by 9%. And I think we have some quicker numbers. Sergeant Smith, if you talk about pedestrians.
Yes. So in a year-to-date comparison, we had approximately 72 individuals this year to be struck by a motor vehicle, with 11 deaths. At the same time comparison with the last year, we had 57 individuals who were struck by a motor vehicle with 11 deaths from resulting from those traffic collisions. So we're breaking dead even at the same time last year with fatalities from pedestrians hit.
But as you were saying, sadly, this year we're a little ahead in the total number of people who've been struck, but we're the same number of people who have died from year to year. And any one person that is struck is too many. Any person that dies, but some of the things that we're doing at Sheriff's Office, the Pedestrian Review Board, some other things are kind of coming into play now to work. There's other things that we do besides just the police and the effort that we've had, and we'll just go over those. Just the last couple of weeks, we had an initiative called Faith in Blue. That was over the weekend of the 7th through the 9th. That is a national program through law enforcement to go out and mentor and bond with the faith community. We had that happening, and we had our several churches that were involved in that. Plus, we had a couple of community cleanups that we did during those areas in different parts of the community. We have a very good relationship with Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful. That is really has a good relationship with the Sheriff's Office to go and doing some cleanups and different things in different parts of the community. Book 'em is another program that we have. Katie Powers is the lady that sort of oversees that, and we have a whole good number of books in our outreach center, and whenever we have an event, she comes out, gives out books, brand new books, and that has been a very good program for us and for that particular organization during this time. Night to Unite, we just had that just earlier last week, last Tuesday, when we had the Night to Unite program. We had groups and neighborhood watch groups all over the county having cookouts and that sort of thing, and us and the Sheriff's Office and the fire department. Some of our folks went out and met with those individuals and had a good relationship, a good connection with those folks in the communities. The pandemic has sort of really put a damper on a lot of those programs, and this year is the first time we've really gotten off the ground with a lot of those back started again. So we look forward to having those programs getting really beefed back up as we go forward. Teen driving, that was another thing that we do every summer. Since we've moved into our outreach center, we're probably going to put those classes on a little bit more often, but we've been doing that during the summer for a number of years now. And we had over 60 kids that were part of that program this year. So there's a lot of things going on at the Sheriff's Office. We are committed and a partner in this Macon Violence Prevention program, and we want to make sure that we do our part to make our community safer. If you saw the news yesterday, we announced with Mayor Miller's help and the commissioner's help this program of part-time deputies. We've had a part-time program in the jail for about the last year and a half, and that program has really worked well for us. We've hired about over 100 part-time deputies who have corrections experience and who have corrections certifications working in the prisons, and they have come in and have really made a difference in the jail. And so it was time now to expand that out to patrol, to have people that are post-certified law enforcement and that their hours are up or whatever, up to date, and have all their training as they need to come in and work for us part-time. We've already had a couple of calls. We had a guy call from Riverdale, Georgia, that was interested in coming down here to work part-time. We'll have him come on down. And so we're looking forward to having some people come in and work part-time with us and help shore us up. I just did a final report this morning on our full-time capabilities. We've been picking up more and more people in the full-time applicants. We have 16 applicants right now that are ready to go, that are just finishing up the background phase of appointments. So out of those 16, we hope maybe we can get maybe 12 or 14 of them hired. So those will be coming on here very soon. So those kinds of things are working forward for us, and we see some good things in the future as far as that goes, as far as hiring and employment.
Can you touch on the fire department just this, the fire department relationship?
Yes. Oh, yes. That's another thing that part of the initiative that we started, and I don't know if Chief Edwards is here, but for years and years, it used to be that the fire service would come and be able to work in the courthouse, work as bailiffs, or work court security for us. And at consolidation, that we wasn't able to do that because of working for the same government. It was some bureaucratic financial situation, but we've been able to, took us 8 years to get it figured out, but we were able to get that overcome now to where that now the firefighters can come in and work part-time, work overtime, you might say, in the courthouse, as well as some other functions, say like Cherry Blossom or other big events that we have that we need basically eyes and ears, or people to be like ambassadors to guide people along, or help park cars, or help direct traffic, do all those kinds of things. It's just that many more people. If you go to a Braves game up in Atlanta, you will see firefighters up there working the working the venue. It's a very similar concept that what we're wanting to do here. In fact, a little point of privilege, we lost one of our long-term bailiffs. He was a retired Assistant Chief Joseph Clemens, who had been a fire bailiff. He had been a firefighter and had been a bailiff. He's somebody that has more time than I do. He had 45 years all total at the courthouse and then through the fire department. His services are tomorrow, but he was a good friend of mine, and I remember that. But he is somebody that we've gone full circle, who worked fire service, worked courthouse, and then was able to come back and work courthouse after he retired. So now we'll have an opportunity for the full-time firefighters to be able to help us out in that regard.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate the presentation. And Mr.
No, I was just going to say, great presentation. I was going to mess with Sergeant Smith. I'm glad to see him doing what he's doing, because that's the last officer that's ever pulled me over in Macon-Bibb County.
not the last. Not the last. So far. Mr. Grissom.
Before I turn it back over to Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that everyone who was on this program today has been working extremely hard to make sure that MVP is both effective and efficient. I want to talk a little bit about what the sheriff just said from my experience with law enforcement, if I may, how important it is to be able to have deputies to come in and work off duty in a capacity where they don't have to wait to go to training for 12 weeks and then come back and do an 18-week training program. I think that part is lost because sometimes it takes a while to get a deputy on the street. So just because they're hired, they're not going to start working tomorrow. And you want the most qualified deputies on the street. So I think that gives us the upper hand in not only allowing outside agencies to assist us with what we have going on, but to give the opportunity to those serving at Cherry Blossom in capacities where we can use them in the streets to actually use, the officers that we have here and allow the other entities to give us that assistance, because it does take time to get deputies on the road, and I think that'll be very beneficial for us. Secondly, I'd like to offer a challenge to anybody listening, leaders, even commissioners. If there's something that you want to see happen, if there's something that has not been addressed, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to join us. No one is above reproach. We are here to make sure that this program is successful, and that's all we care about. It's not political. The data does not tell you everything that we are doing here to make sure that this county is better for what we're doing. But in some cases, there are stories that are not told by a number. There are members of this community that are affected by MVP and that are affected by violence, and the numbers don't tell their stories. So I challenge you to get involved. I challenge you to get in the community. I challenge you to get off Facebook and get in the fight with us, because we're here and we're going to be here. And this is work that we're going to continue to do. And what we hope that is that in the future, when we leave these positions that we're currently in, that this city will be better off for what we've done and the efforts we've put forward to try to make sure that kids in this community can walk these streets without hearing gunfire, being shot at, to make sure that we can all thrive in this community and feel safe doing so. And I appreciate, again, the opportunity to be a part of something so historic. Again, I am gracious and grateful, and I am open, to discuss, anything you have in mind. I'm available for a call. I'm available for an email. I'm here. There's no question that you won't have answered. I just ask that you ask that question to me, not to Facebook or Instagram or a reporter, because I can answer that question, and I don't mind answering that question. And I thank you again for everybody that came and gave us the data that we needed to hear. And I want to turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor, to close us out.
Thank you, Mr. Grisham. Thank you. First of all, let me publicly thank you for all the hard work that you've been putting in this both day and both night in orchestrating this event today. We want to make sure that we do this very often. I know you and I have had the conversation to give some regular updates. Remind folks that a lot of the presentation you heard today are from folks that were vetted out by the Community Foundation of Central Georgia. They have their data they'll be collecting, and we'll ask them before the next time those come back up, especially on anybody that may get refunded, to give us the data associated with that, and we certainly believe we will get that. I want to thank the presenters for being here today, giving up your time. I know it's valuable to you, and you've got work to do. I saw our U.S. Attorney here, sir. Mr. Leary, thank you very much for being here and for all that you do to protect our community. I want to make sure we recognize you. Our solicitor was here earlier. I know she had somewhere she had to be, but Rebecca Grice came here and she left, and she's done a wonderful job in our solicitor office in particular to helping out with the MVP program. She's on our leadership team, as well as the violence against, in our community for domestic violence. I see our public defender here, and we can't just have one side of the story. There's always multiple sides of the story, and we certainly appreciate all the good work that Rick Waller's doing there and his staff, and he's a great part of our team. And I also saw Jamie Cassidy here from the school system. I know Superintendent Sims has been an instrumental part of helping out, collaborate. We're looking at doing some great things and pulling our money together in the very near future, but thank you for the literacy program. Thank you for being there as far as the positive behavior intervention services you offer there through PBIS and the Leader in Me. So we have a lot of great partners. I see our Bookham person here today, Ms. Powers. Thank you for being here. The sheriff talked about you as if you were not here, but I don't think he recognized you back there. So I don't want to leave anybody out, but I've heard some wonderful things today. I want to close this out. We've got a meeting here in just a moment, but I just want to thank everybody that came here today. I ask again, if you got questions, whether it's out in the audience or whether it's commissioners, if you will direct those questions to Jeremy Grissom, he'll be happy to give you all of his contact information. Here's our MVP rep that you've graciously funded and we selected as a group back in the day. He's going to give some of those questions to the sheriff that we can't answer, to the superintendent at the school system that we can't answer, and to the DA that we can't answer because we don't have that information. Anything we can get in-house, he'll be your contact there. I saw a light on Commissioner Watkins.
Yes, sir. I guess part of it is, of course, I have questions. Got them written down here, some of them from the sheriff who's here today. And I guess I can write them down, but some of them could be answered swiftly. What is your plans for meetings going forward? Is there a follow-up meeting to this, being that it seems like we're out of time in the next couple of weeks? Or
yeah, if you got some quick questions for the sheriff, I think he'd be happy to answer them now. But I think as far as follow-up, as soon as the all the reports for the first quarter in for the Community Foundation, Mr. Grissom will be getting those reports in. I think that'll be a good time after we get all that data in, make sure everybody's filed what they're supposed to do. And we'll have Catherine Dennis here perhaps the next time she'll be back, and she can let us know about the second round as well. And we'll do a follow-up like this the next year based on that as well. But that's our current plans right now to get back with commissioners on that.
clarify, you said the quarterly reports were when?
Mr. Grissom, you want to explain that? I don't want to speak out of turn, but our first quarter reports from the money that we gave out in February and March are coming due now.
Yeah, they were due on the 14th, and so they're still gathering all that data. If you'd like to get with me in the next week or so, once they have it in to compile all the data, we can do that, or we can meet at a time that the whole commission wants to meet, whichever works best.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And so on the data of, I guess, crime, just help me out. And earlier in, I guess, the county attorney's report, there were several areas that were showing 98% reduction, 75% reductions, quite significant reductions. But when I look at the overall, it seems like the numbers were either slightly up or slightly down, very close to stagnant. So it suggests to me that, I guess, crime is migrating. Could someone speak to what's happening there?
Yeah, I think we have to. I do want to remind you that I don't think it's migrating. I think that may be the wrong term to use, because we were intentional about the information we provided you, in particular to the M&M store there on Montpelier and Pansy, because there were some allegations that, well, if you close your store down, it's going to go somewhere else. That's why we went above and beyond to give you the information on all the way within a half a mile area there from Pinona all the way past that store, to see if you both areas there, including both different sets that they have in that community, to make sure that was not happening. I think some of the purpose of what the sheriff said was showing you that the number of shots fired is down, the focus deterrence and the operations they're doing is down, violent crime is down, but I think the only thing that appeared to be up is most of your burglaries and that could be returning back to some sense of normalcy since the pandemic, sound that everybody's back out again. But that's just me summarizing. I don't want to step on the sheriff's toe, but I think that's how a better summation would be. Sheriff?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It depends on what you look at. Like those where you saw significant differences, those were specific to those particular locations as a result of some of the actions that were taken with the hotels as well as the M&M grocery. So when you look at that, yes, you're going to see significant, but when you take that in the whole, it doesn't have as much of an impact when you're looking at a reduction in 20, 30, 40 calls at one place. That may result in a 90% decrease, but when you're looking at hundreds and hundreds of calls throughout the whole county, those numbers are not significant enough to carry over into a decrease throughout the whole county. But when you're looking at specific places, and some of these data that we did from these operations was looking at the county-wide effect that it had on crime for what we did. Like the Four Corners, they were in all parts of the community, so that was the total crime picture for the whole county. Those other figures were specific to those particular locations.
One thing I may add, Sheriff, I think that the slides that you saw too, because I want to make sure everybody's using the same information. What you saw is the 3 weeks before the store was closed and 3 weeks after, to kind of give you a snapshot of the instant difference that it made in those areas. The 68% drop in robberies was based on the Four Corners for the Sheriff's Department. That was all across the entire county, and that covers several months.
That's right.
Go ahead.
One of the notes I wrote down that we had a 71% decrease in commercial robbery.
That's right.
And but overall we had a 10% increase in property crime.
Yeah.
So how, did everyone shift to just doing residential, or I assume residential, something had to go up very high, right?
Well, yeah, but commercial armed robbery is counted as a person's crime, so that's why that counted. Now, commercial.
I don't understand that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
say it one more time.
But a commercial burglary is think of a commercial robbery as somebody comes in and threatens with a gun or threatens some kind of way of bodily harm. That makes it a person's crime. But a burglary, commercial burglary, is where they just break in and steal whatever they're going to see. That's where we saw some increases in the commercial burglaries, not commercial robberies, but commercial burglaries. We saw an increase in that. Entering autos, we saw some increase in that, as well as auto thefts. But residential burglaries have trended down.
And so the section that creates the 10% increase is not residential burglaries or commercial robberies, it's commercial burglaries? They're going up higher, or what's happening?
It would be part of, when you take all of the crimes cumulatively, you take in the person's crimes as well as the
property
property
crime
crimes.
was up 10%.
And then that's where you get, the final number that you get when you compare the total to what you had before was a little bit, because
This
you're gonna
is a
have,
bit-
because when you look at property crimes, you're gonna have typically more property crimes than you do persons crimes. So whenever you have an increase in any of those, it's gonna sometimes drive your total numbers up.
More helpful for me, if I could see the spreadsheets.
Sure.
Could y'all share that, please?
Sergeant Smith, be happy to get that
All
for
right,
you.
awesome.
We have that.
And I guess on ShotSpotter, it's kind of our first time going over that.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make sure I understood, I guess, what would be the scenario. So alerts went down by 25%, and rounds detected by 12% over the time period.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that, right? That would have meant that there were fewer incidents, but during those incidents, more rounds were fired,
No, it was fewer incidents and fewer rounds.
but not the same.
No, because
Well, one incident somebody may fire 12 rounds, so you're
Yeah.
not going to be
Yeah.
round, number for number there, but the
Yeah.
number of incidents and the number of shots fires both decrease.
That's right.
And we've only been tracking that data since February the 17th, when we first installed the equipment, so we're still in that process. That's why you don't have a January up to the present date.
Just so I'm clear though, the average seems like the average shots per incident has gone up though.
The,
No,
the
that
average
wouldn't be true.
shots per incident have gone down.
Well-
The expert here.
Okay.
For the PowerPoint presentation, because we do not have a full year's data, so we can only give you a quarter data. So we went live February the 24th. So the data that you're looking at is based from the second quarter to the third quarter, which is April through June, and then July through September. What you saw, we had lower number of incidents of people going outside firing their guns. The system also detects on how many rounds that person shoots during each incident. So we have had fewer incidents as well as fewer number of rounds being detected.
Okay.
So both of those has gone down significantly during the quarters, and that's heavily due to the several operations that we had going on, which were more visible, and we're taking those firearms off of individuals who were shooting those firearms.
Thank you, sir.
And is it possible also to have that spreadsheet provided so we can look at that in a little bit more detail?
Sure.
And anecdotally, it appears to me that more people are shooting than ever before. So I need a little bit more to convince me, and I'm sure the data is there, that it is getting better. Because, like I say, my anecdote, and again, I guess the overarching murder rate, and it seems to be a little higher than last year, but not as bad as previous quarter. Our trend is trending down, which is good news.
Those kinds of things based on our operations, all of those violent crimes have trended down. Now the murders, the homicides, however you want to get there, they kind of stayed unchanged, but some of those were domestic, where you have one that was they were domestic, and it's very hard to prevent those.
One of the things, so I'm very thrilled with all the programs that are taking place. We're doing some awesome things for the youth in this community through the programs, and I want to see that continue. One of the things that kind of sticks out to me, most of our programs are focused on the prevention aspect, and it seems like majority of the folks who presented today, and from what I've read online, we're servicing people under the age of 18. And I get that, that's part of the prevention model. But I guess we also heard from some of the interrupters and intervention folks. Our services around people, like when I look at the news, I see people who are shooting are typically age 16 to 35 males that are doing that. Our intentionality around servicing that age group of males, and one of the things that kind of sticks out to me, that it's a lot of them. Like just looking at food insecurity for youth, it's almost 9,000 kids, and we're serving, I think by the programs today, maybe 2,700 folks have been served by what was presented, which is again impressive, but a lot of those aren't the folks that are committing the crimes actively. and I guess I'm looking for somewhere in our program and model that we're being intentional about that target. Can someone speak to me on that intentionality? Is that something we need to get back to later?
I think we can get back later, but I do want to remind you that we didn't have them present today on the $500,000 we gave to 17 very strategically targeted organizations in the at-risk communities. This commission approved $500,000. We awarded grants to 17 separate organizations that were specifically targeted for the at-risk communities. And y'all did that. I mean, it's nothing, there's no news. We voted on that. We did it. We spend the money. Some of them still have events going on, but it's very targeted. We didn't have them present today because we felt like we were covering that. But certainly that $500,000 to me says a lot. And certainly nothing says we can't do it again and continue to do the food insecurity. But it's something we're working on as a team, and it's part of MVP. It's just not the sheriff-led part that the sheriff's familiar with. That 2,700 you're talking about out of the 9,000 was just what was represented in these programs today. Only half the programs actually participated today, and that does not include the 17 organizations that got $500,000 that's been working in our community.
I think I've previously sent the request. If at some point I can get an understanding in the near future, and I'll send it in the upcoming email, how many folks are truly being served by our programs that we're funding. I would like to know that. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Let me go to Commissioner Jones real quick. Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir. I have the phone number for Mr. Grissom from the clerk, but I don't have his email. I got here after the start, so.
Yeah.
Sir.
Email is jgrissom, JGRISSOM,
Right.
at Macon-Bibb.us. Good to go? Okay.
Mr. Jones, your light been on for that? Okay. I appreciate everyone again today. Please refer all your questions there. And Mr. Grissom, please do your best to make sure you can get all the information that the commissioners need, and we'll keep out for the community. It's been a long day so far, but we had a lot of good work to do. I'm looking for some more information. Sheriff, thank you for your team, for all that you do. Judge Adams, I know, snuck out on me. I forgot to mention him a while ago, but Judge Adams is doing a wonderful job with his Middle Georgia Justice. He's going to have something that he'll bring back before this commission in the very near future concerning some expungement and job opportunities, as well as eliminating or remediating some blight before it happens. So I look forward to sharing that with you in the near future. So it's been a great day. We've got a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. We're going to wrap this up now. Commissioners, there is some snacks for you in the back so you can get replenished before we meet today. But this presentation is hereby over. Thank you.